right, so here's a cool one for you. The Kick Rocks, We Speak Truth. I kind of played with it a little bit. I thought it was pretty neat. It's actually combined something I'd been working on my own with the woman at the well. But there's something in both of them that I see that I think is pretty neat. So at the end of the day, like it's the idea of speaking truth. That's where I was going, and actually see it woven into both of these. So we speak truth, we hold on to truth, we live truth, and we confront the world with truth. I think that's basically what the Christian life is about, because truth is what leads to transformation. It transforms us. So once we have the transformation, we carry that truth with us. So John 8, John 4, in both of those, when we look and see Jesus, we see he never really separated the truth from grace, right? He confronts sin, not to condemn people, but to set them free. And in both John 8 and John 4, we see Jesus do this astonishing thing. He speaks truth that exposes sin, but not to condemn, but redeem people, right? And that's what it all kind of boils down to. So he invites people to have and confront that brokenness so that they can encounter grace and the transformed and be transformed, right? So these two stories show us exactly that, and how it leads to transformation. So the idea with the woman that's caught in adultery, it's a woman. She's dragged before Jesus by the religious leaders who then they're attempting to trap him. That's what it kind of boils down to. They demand a legal verdict. According to the law, she deserved judgment, and that's true. But before Jesus speaks to the woman, he actually dealt with the accusers, right? So he writes on the ground. He stoops down. People say he's writing the sins, and that when the religious leaders see those sins that he wrote on the ground, they're convicted. Again, it doesn't really matter so much as what he's writing. I mean, the message is truth begins in the heart, and that's kind of what he's doing. He doesn't deny the law. He's exposing the hypocrisy of these guys. He says, let whoever is without sin first among you cast the first stone, right? So that's where this is all heading. When one by one they drop their stones and walk away, they're convicted by the Holy Spirit. They're convicted by the conscience, whether it's what Jesus wrote on the ground or not. But at the end of the day, Jesus upholds righteousness. He's giving truth, right? He calls sin what it is. He's confronting it, and then not only does he confront the sin, but he's offering mercy for it. Right? He says, like, neither do I condemn you. And that's the same thought as what's happening there with the woman at the well. So Jesus, going through Samaria and traveling at the well, there he meets a Samaritan woman. Like, they don't typically talk to Samaritan women. They don't publicly speak to women. He's breaking all kinds of barriers to do it. So Jesus, again, this idea, I don't care about your laws. I'm going to do truth. I'm going to give it to you. The woman, she asks for a drink, and it starts with the idea of that relationship. He's offering something. He's giving her living water. That's what he's offering, is that relationship. So the eternal life it's found in him. That's where he's going. So before he can give her the eternal life, she has to bring the truth into the conversation, right? So he says, go tell your husband. He's opening the door, and for that deeper story, and that's where it all breaks down. But he's telling her he doesn't have the husband. He talks about her past, and telling her you've had multiple husbands. The man you have now is not your husband. He exposes her sin in that situation, but he's not actually shaming her. Right? Same kind of thought there with the woman who's caught in adultery. That there's shame, and obviously he's dealing with both of these women. That not just talking to the accusers or talking to the guys that are casting the first stones. The real salvation is in both of these women. But it does show a contrast. I mean, you see there is a contrast there that at that point you've got the accusers who are also given the same truth, and they turn around and walk away. And then you have the woman who is saved, and she's the one who's given the salvation. And not only that, but she goes and tells her whole village about her testimony, and that's pretty cool. So you see there with Jesus that he's got sort of a pattern. I think that's kind of an interesting thought there, is that he's always speaking truth. He's carrying truth. He is truth. God is truth, and God is Jesus. So when he confronts truth or confronts sin, he meets it with truth. Not only does he do that, then he gives grace. So the sinner, they're not rejected. And then after that, he offers them a new way. And it's kind of what's always happened. That seems to be like a real pattern. And that's a pattern for human life, is that you offer truth, you offer grace, you offer the way. So it's great if you give somebody grace without that actual truth, then it's just kind of an empty sentiment. You need to be giving them something, and you can't just give them truth all the time. You can't browbeat people, because that's crushing judgment. So what Jesus is doing is giving grace and truth together, which brings redemption, and that's what we all want to do, right? We all want to share that and have that. So Jesus never leaves people where he finds them. That's kind of cool. And then he meets them where they are, gives them grace, and leads them out, leads them towards holiness. So both the accusers in John 8, the Samaritan woman in John 4, both of them are confronted with that truth, right? One group walked away and changed, and the women in both the stories stepped away to new life. So it wasn't in what Jesus offered. He's always offering truth. He carries truth. He has truth. He brings it with him. But it was how the people responded to that truth. It was in their response is how it's confronted, right? So he offers that to everybody today, and I think that's a pretty cool message. So what is it about truth? Why is it important? I think that's a really big concept there. We talk about truth. It's not like a personal preference. It's not speak your own truth and whatever your reality is. When you're talking about God's truth, God's objective truth, God is truth that comes from outside of our time and our space and our understanding, and it just is true. And everything that God is one of his attributes. He's true. So it's not a subjective truth. It's truth. It's everything that God says and does is truth. God is truth. His word is truth. John 17, right? Truth exposes what's broken and leaves what grace has to heal, right? Truth is not, it's not really the enemy of love, but it's the pathway to freedom in these situations. It's what truth is, and truth is what shapes his story. We preach Christ. We preach truth. We speak truth, just like he did. So we are called to do the same thing. It's the idea that truth is not optional; it's essential. That Jesus never actually avoided difficult truth, and I think that's really cool. And I think that's kind of the message. That's really the idea that I had been playing with all along, was that Jesus never shied away from difficult truth. He confronted it, even when it meant his death. He still stood in truth, still confronted truth, and I think that's important because he is truth, and then that truth is carried in us, and we keep that truth with us always. So we can't offer people freedom without first giving them the truth. But truth has to be delivered a certain way, and I think that's another thing that Jesus showed. It has to be delivered with grace, right? He spoke the truth without crushing people. It's not a weapon or a tool to be hurled at people, right? It's words are meant to heal. Words can be healing, but they can also be hurting. So Jesus always chose the way of revealing it and helping people. So our words then should lift and not destroy. The truth, it starts with humility. I think that's what it boils down to. Is if Jesus humbled himself, took on the flesh and humbled himself in Philippians. So if we do the same, if we are humble, we are able to share the truth and do it from the right heart, then I think that's important. So we have to examine our own hearts, and that was the call here, is to examine our own hearts before pointing at somebody else. That's what Jesus condemned the religious leaders for, and that should be something we're looking for as well. So we want to speak truth from the right place, from the right heart, from a heart of humility, of compassion, and not superiority. All right, so then truth then invites transformation. It's not condemnation, but Jesus didn't just point out their sin. He offered them a way out. That truth should always lead to hope. Truth then connects before it corrects. I think that was kind of a cool, catchy thought, is that it always connects the person to the truth. So it doesn't just reveal it, confront them with it, but he helps them to see it, and he helps to see their place in it. And then that's how somebody is led out. So it didn't just expose the woman's past. He began the conversation, and that conversation opened the door for her to see and then become healed. Then truth sees people as God sees them. I think that's another really interesting thought, is that people just aren't they're not just sinners and outcasts, but Jesus saw person for who they are. And I think that's something that as a church we've been working on, is going out and finding people that need help. It's taking the people that God brings to us and putting our arms around them and working with them and helping them. That you're seeing the value in every human person, every human life, and you're seeing them that they're people worth saving, right? Not just using, but saving. And the way you go and help that person and save that person is speak truth. You speak to somebody's future as it will exist with God, as it exists with God right now, that God brought that person to you. So you're speaking that truth for the future, and not so much about the past. They have to deal with their past. They have to deal with the sin. You speak truth to help confront that, but then you work with them on their future. And that whole idea of speaking truth, that is the mission, right? That's what we're called to do. We're called not to be silent in a broken world. We're called to carry that same heart of grace, that the heart of Jesus, be ambassadors, right? Lead people into transformation. And I think that's really pretty cool point, is that at the end of the day, the truth then, it reveals our need. It reveals a person's need, people's need, right? That truth reveals. It's kind of like the law in that sense, is that the law reveals where somebody fell short, right? But then grace, in the same way, reveals God's heart. It reveals God's love, and it bridges the gap. And Jesus is the one that brought it. Jesus is the one that offers it. So the Bible, it does. It commands us to speak truth. We carry truth. We speak truth. We're called to speak it like Jesus did, with courage and boldness, but not in cruelty, but with conviction, and not condemnation, but with honesty, and not always the bad honesty, the tough honesty, but always honesty sprinkled with hope. It's truth with grace, seasoned with salt, right? And that, given without the truth, like giving grace, forgiveness without that truth, sometimes could be a deception for a person. But grace mixed with truth, that is salvation. Somebody confronting them at the base of who they are, truly, that really is. So you speak the truth in love, Ephesians 4. All right, you put off falsehood, speak rightly. That kind of goes on to that whole concept of how we interact with people. We gently instruct people that we are to given. We instruct people that are opposed to the truth. I think that's Timothy. Now, we're called not to be silent, basically. I mean, we carry truth. That's what we have to do. So, speaking the truth, then, this is one of those thoughts that I had wrestled with a long time ago, and it's that, when you speak truth, it's costly. We are called to be bold, and it can very well be costly. So when you speak truth, you carry God, but know it that it's very costly. And in the end, you've got to understand that truth is costly. That Jesus didn't just talk about truth; he embodied it, he lived it, he carried it, and that's what we're called to do. He spoke truth in the face of these religious leaders who were looking to trap him. He talked truth to friends. He talked them to enemies. He spoke truth where it was uncomfortable. He spoke truth in all situations. Even when it offended people, he spoke truth. He put the target on his back. He welcomed it. And ultimately, he spoke truth that led to his death. And he just never backed down. So that really is our call. He didn't speak, don't not speak just to stay safe. I think that's really what it comes down to. And don't compromise truth just to gain the approval. Don't avoid the hard conversations just to protect yourself. Jesus never did that, because it's the truth that sets people free. Truth leads people to God, and truth wrapped in love and in grace is what transforms people's lives, and that's what we're called to do. So we carry on that calling. That's our job. We speak truth even when it hurts, and when it's uncomfortable, when the culture rejects it, when people misunderstand it. We speak truth because we know reality, and we know objective truth. We know that eternity is real, and we have to share it, and that's our goal. So, and we share it with the people that God brings to us, because those people matter to God. So speak the truth in love, not with anger, not with pride, not with superiority. We speak it with love and compassion, just like Jesus, because silence is not love. Approval is not love. Truth is love, and truth leads people to Jesus. So we speak like Jesus. We lead people in a relationship, not an accusation, and we speak with humility. We speak truth that confronts. We give grace to cover, and we give hope that transforms people's lives. So Jesus taught us how to engage the broken world, and that's really what he's doing. And that's really the bottom line with it, is that it leads to relationship and not accusation. We speak truth with humility. We offer grace that gives change, and we see people for their potential and not just the past. So we don't run from the truth. We don't hide. We confront the people with it. We don't try to avoid sin. We confront it with truth. We don't ignore brokenness. We step into it, we lean into it, and we offer Jesus. And he didn't. We don't stay silent in the face of lies and in the face of the world. We declare it with truth, and I think that's going to be the call, and I think that's what we're called to do. That's what God calls us to do, and that's really what it boils down to. So speak truth with grace and boldness and love. Speak truth now. Don't wait. If it's on your heart to speak truth, then live truth and carry truth, then do it, because it's the truth that transforms people's lives, and that's what we're called to do.